Episode 1 of the Spittin Sports Podcast. I'm Michael.
I'm Drew Avery.
I'm Jaden Murphy.
And special guest Luke Crouch Green. The first thing we're going to get into is the matchup last night. Divisional matchup, Detroit Lions versus Green Bay Packers. Any initial thoughts on the game, boys?
Detroit ran the ball a lot against the Packers. David Montgomery went for 121 yards and 3 touchdowns. They simply could not stop the run against them last night.
The real question is, are the Lions the real deal this year, you think, Murph?
Yeah, I think they are. Jared Goff looking really good out there. 1,000 yards thrown so far this season. I mean, their defense been playing good. They are looking like the real deal this year.
I think the biggest difference in the game, actually, like the quarterbacks played similar stats games, but Montgomery really ran the ball well compared to Jones.
Yeah, well, Jordan Love had a rough first half. I was watching. He only had 80-odd yards thrown in the first half. He picked it up in the second half, but the first 3 games of the season, he looked a lot better than what he did last night. So hopefully he can bounce back compared to last night, which I think he will. So.
The thing is, the first couple of years since the Stafford-Goff trade, everyone thought that it was just a highway robbery for the Rams, but I think Goff's team was just a bit younger, and I think they're finally starting to get into their prime as a team, and I think they're an exciting team to watch since week 1.
Yeah, well, I think their offense is the real deal. Like, they've scored a lot of points every single game. Like, the only loss they had was in overtime. They lost 37-34, I think, against the Seahawks, so I think they're the real deal.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of all these Jared Goff and Jordan Love quarterbacks, why don't we look at the top 10 best quarterbacks so far into the season? Now, in my opinion, the best quarterback this season for me has been Tua. I don't know. What else gotta say
it's
about
kind of hard to argue it with the stats that are put up in the first 3 games of the season. Now, is it going to stay that high?
Yeah.
Probably not, but I think it's fair.
We'll see if Tua's the real deal Sunday against the Bills. I think that the Bills will slow him down to what he was doing this season.
We'll get into that game later on. Who's number 2?
Number 2 for me this season so far. It's hard to not put Jordan Love there. Even though the Packers are playing good.
What are you
Right
talking
now.
about?
It's beyond me.
Okay.
Jordan
No.
Love at number 2.
Oh my
With
God.
the team they got and with how he's playing so far, it's looking.
I do think he's a young, good quarterback, but I think it's wild.
Okay, I think he did a great job filling in for the big shoes that Aaron Rodgers left. But there's no way he was the second best quarterback in the past 4 weeks.
Who's 2 for you? Who's 2 for you?
Personally, I think I got a lot of people overlooked, and a lot of people I think overlook Kirk Cousins. He is 0-3, but he's leading the league in passing yards, and their offense is unreal. The only thing that's slowing down the Vikings right now is their defense. So I think Kirk Cousins is playing unreal for me so far.
And the other thing about it is Kirk Cousins, I think, is one of the most steady quarterbacks in the game. Mm-hmm. You know what you're getting from him every week. He's not the flashiest quarterback, but he's definitely one of the most consistent quarterbacks.
Personally, I think Lamar Jackson needs to step up his game.
Yeah.
I mean,
he had a rough week last week. A couple fumbles. It was a rainy day against the Colts, but the Colts defense isn't bad, but they definitely should have came out with the win. Justin Tucker had a field goal to kick at the end of the 4th quarter to win them the game, and he missed.
What is your guys' thoughts on Joe Burrow's start to the season so far? A bit slow at the game.
Well, he's dealing with an injury. We all gotta remember. Like, he is dealing with a calf injury, so I don't know how much that is affecting his game, but.
Well, last week, Jamar Chase got for over 100 receiving yards. They had a great game, actually. I'm not too worried about the Bengals, to be honest with you. I think they're going to come around.
Joe Burrow just had a slow start for the first 2 games, and then this game wasn't too bad. So.
Well, you also got to remember that last year, I'm pretty sure they started 0-2 as well. And at the end of the year, they ended up 13-4.
Yeah,
and they went to the AFC
Similar situation last year.
Yeah. So, I'm not panicking on them yet, personally.
I think they're a front runner for winning the Super Bowl this year.
Well, I mean, they're only a young team. They've been to the dance once before.
It's hard to put the Chiefs in. I don't know.
So. I also think that there's 2 great quarterbacks playing so far. I like C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson. I know Anthony Richardson missed the game against the Ravens because of concussion, but I think they're playing unreal. And C.J. Stroud beat the Jaguars Week 3, which was a huge upset over Trevor
C.J.
Lawrence.
Stroud is the new Houston Texans franchise QB.
It's a new era for quarterbacks. A lot of new quarterbacks coming in, a lot of legends coming out. The last topic we want to get into about the NFL is the almost historic game, Dolphins vs. Broncos, 70-20.
Brutal for the Broncos.
Yeah. Their defense was just torched. I don't know what they were doing. Like, their best corner, Patrick Surtain, had a terrible game against Tyreek Hill, so.
I'm surprised Russell Wilson didn't do nothing. No.
I mean,
He's proved that he's out of
the
his mind.
defense just looked helpless. Now, it is the Broncos. I think a big test is going to be, like Drew said earlier, the Bills.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to give a round of applause to Mike McDaniels for not getting the point record.
See, I think he should have kicked the field goal.
That's respectful.
No,
I think
I
that's
think he was being
respectful.
respectful.
No, that's
I think-
respect.
If that's me, I'm taking 3 points.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that Sean Payton is like an all-time head coach.
Yeah.
I think that had a lot. There's a lot of respect that way. I think that it would have looked kind of bad if they did that to Sean Payton, but
But if that's Sean Payton there, he's taking them 3 points.
I just want to say that Tyreek Hill has been on another level this year, and I can't wait to see him play the Bills this week, and that's why I want to get into the top 3 matchups of this week that we have talked about. Would you like to talk about the first one?
Well, we got the Dolphins versus the Bills. I mean, the 3-0 Dolphins versus the 2-1 Bills. You got Josh Allen versus Tua. You got Tyreek versus Stephon. I mean,
this is kind of brewing a rivalry the last few years, actually.
Both pretty good defenses. I think the Dolphins' defense is very underrated.
We're still waiting on Jalen Ramsey to get back to.
And number 2 we're going to talk about is Ezekiel Elliott playing against his former team, the Cowboys. I know the Patriots haven't been.
in my opinion, this is a walking apart for the Cowboys. But
I think the Patriots' defense is very underrated. We seen what happened to the Cowboys against the Cardinals last week, and I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again. The Patriots were neck and neck with the Eagles week 1, only lost by 5 points. And I think Dak Prescott's going to have a lot of trouble against that big Patriots defense.
Yeah, definitely. But the thing about it is, the Cowboys have a good enough offense where if Mac Jones doesn't show up, it's not going to be a close game. So I think that Mac Jones needs to be more consistent, and I think that he's going to be a main factor in deciding if this is a close game or not. Because I do think the Cowboys are contenders this year. I think they're a great football team.
I think the Cowboys smoked that.
And last matchup we'll get into is the Seahawks versus Giants. Now the Giants have been very disappointing this year so far.
I think the Seahawks.
Their only win they had was against the Cardinals, which they were down by 28 points, I think, in the first half, and somehow came back. They got absolutely embarrassed first night, Sunday Night Football against the Cowboys. Embarrassing
that was
game.
brutal.
Embarrassing game. 40-0. It just didn't look like they knew what they were doing. Saquon Barkley's also out of this game.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to rely on a couple big players to step up, but I do think Seahawks do take this game with their great offense and underrated defense.
I agree.
I don't know if I do think the Seahawks are going to win this game, but I don't really see much hype around the Seahawks in general, to be honest with you yet. I think that they're kind of pretenders right now. I think they're young. I don't think they have a lot of experience, but I do take them in this game.
Alright. I think that's all we got for the NFL, but next we'd like to talk about the MLB and how the Blue Jays season is going overall. I know they're in a wild card spot right now, but overall I think this season has been disappointing. You guys?
The most up and down team imaginable, and that's not going to change in these last few games. I mean, they come out after a big winning streak, like 3 or 4 series in a row, and then they get shut out 2 games in a row by the Yankees in what could have been like basically closing out games.
I just think they're disappointing at home. They won 7 of 9 on the road, I'm pretty sure, against all pretty good teams, American League East teams at that, which they struggled with that this year. And then they come home against the same team they just played. I understand that they had 2 good pitchers against them in the first 2 games of the series, but it's just unacceptable. They're at home, huge games to see if they're going into the postseason. They cannot be putting up 2 zeros in a row.
They're leaving a lot of base runners stranded as well, but they need them clutch hitters like Springer, Vladdy,
And Boba
Merrifield.
Bichette got to step it up.
Yeah.
Belt has just came back. He hit a 3-run homer last night, which is big. But they're just playing as an inexperienced team. They're playing like they haven't been there before. When you got people like George Springer, multiple World Series, Brandon Belt, multiple World Series, Kevin Kiermaier has been there. Lots of people. Whit Merrifield's been around the league for a very long time. All these players that have done it before, and they're playing like they have never.
I mean, there's just too many games where your big names like Bichette, Guerrero are doing nothing, and then you got these veterans like Belt, or even like a young guy who came in nowhere like Biggio, who couldn't find a roster spot. They can't be the players that you're relying on to make big hits.
I like how you brought up Biggio. Like Biggio, key role in these last month, I would say September. Like Biggio has been unreal for them. I think top player so far. Vladdy caught far for a little bit, but he slowed down again. Cracked off the bat last night. The frustration of striking out on a 3-0 count.
Yeah.
It's just, I think Biggio has just been their most consistent and top player over the past month.
I mean, if I had to set my my wild card lineup, I got Biggio in the 3, 4, 5 spot. Just you got to play the hot hand. You know, I think that Biggio is someone who deserves a spot in the playoff lineup.
Well, he's earned it the past couple of weeks, and like David Schneider, especially since he's been on a downhill trend the last couple of days, it just makes room for Biggio to come in on that second base spot. Kirk playing catcher, obviously. First base, Vladdy. Shortstop got to be Bichette, even though you got to pick it up. Chapman, underwhelming season from him, but he's a great defender.
Gotta step up on the bats there.
Yeah, like that's not good enough on the bats for Chapman. They're not. We have great defenders. Like we got Varsho, but just not a great hitter. Kevin Kiermaier, he's pretty consistent this whole year. Great contacts for center field, and then George Springer right field. I think that's my playoff lineup. So what do you guys think about the pitching in the playoffs? I know they've been great regular season wise, but who do you have starting?
Yeah, well, we talked about the bats for a while. The bats are probably the most underwhelming part of the team by far, but the pitching is elite. The pitching is really elite. Bullpen, the starters. If I had to, I'd say game 1, you got to start Gosman.
Gotta set the tone.
Yeah, gotta set the tone. He's probably the number 2 or 3 pitcher in the AL this year, behind obviously Garrett Cole and give or take a couple more guys, but he's led the AL in strikeouts this year, has a great pitch with that splitter and fastball. I just think he's a perfect ideal person to have first game. He's been there, pitched in multiple playoff games so far, so I think he's number 1. But who do you have after him? Because we got a lot of people competing, such as
I would say Barrios.
Barrios has been solid, but lately he's on a downhill.
Yeah,
I
maybe
think
Bassett.
Bassett has pitched 200 innings this year. Like he's been their consistent guy. But I also think Kikuchi is very underrated this season, having a great year, pitching 10-6 this year. Like Blue Jays have been playing good with him on the mound. So who do you have as their number 2?
I'd like to see Barrios there.
I think Barrios is one of those pitchers that he's either really on or he's really off.
Yeah.
But I do think that if Barrios comes in, gets a couple innings under his belt, he could lead them to a Game 2 win. I also think, though, that the way these Blue Jays pitchers are set up is you can't make that decision. You have to make it game by game. You can't make the decision for the full series. Like, I mean, I honestly do believe that if the Jays lose Game 1 of the wild card, I think we go back with Bassett in Game 2 in a must-win game.
I like Bassett as well. I really do think Kikuchi's very underrated. The second half of the season, since the All-Star break, he's been a top pitcher in my opinion. And I do think that he could be the 3rd best pitcher in this rotation right now.
Yeah. A lot of it comes down to experience. I don't know if I put Kikuchi in a game-deciding game.
That's true.
Like a series-deciding game, but I do think that Kikuchi should get in there. He should be. He could be a number 2. He could even be a starter, but I do think that they're going to start the series off with Gosman.
For sure.
Yeah.
And
like Mike was saying, all that matters is you win the first game or not.
There you go.
Yeah.
First game's huge. Also depends on who they're playing as well, and what kind of matchups they got, lefty, righty, batters. Sorry. I also just want to talk about the bullpen, which has been unreal for us this year. We picked up a couple players from the Cardinals at the deadline, which I think was huge. Cabrera and Hicks. Hicks is a flamethrower. I think he's been unreal, but I just want to talk about how key Cabrera has been the past couple months. He's been unreal. Not much runs given up from him, and I think he's really underrated deadline pickup for us. Didn't give away much from him, and I think he's been great.
I think that he's the type of guy that John Snyder relies on in basically any situation possible. He comes in the game in 7, 8, or 9 innings, close games. I do like Herrera, but as you were talking about Hicks, I think Hicks is basically unhittable. Like when he's on, he throws too hard. He's got good command.
Velocity and
when he throws the speed.
I want to ask you about something. Big game, 9th inning. Who do you put out in a big game in the playoffs? Romano or Hicks?
Hicks. They can't catch up to him.
I think that I honestly do believe, even though Hicks is good, I think I'm still taking Romano. Because Romano is a starter, he's got lots of saves under his belt. Most of the runs he lets up are actually when John Snyder puts him in games where the games are tied. I guess it's just a field, a closer thing. But I still think I do give the ball to Romano.
I don't know. I think I'm with Yeti and Luke here. I think I'm with Hicks, personally. The last 2 games, in the clutch of clutch situations against the Rays, he blew it. We were up 6-5, comeback game, loads it. And then he just blew it at home. 0-0 against the Yankees, 9th inning, blows it again.
Yeah.
He has been reported with a finger injury, some kind of fingernail injury, I think it is, which it does affect the pitcher. But from recent events, I think that I'm taking Hicks. He was kind of, in the big situations, I think he came up more clutch.
Yeah, Romano can't be doing that in the playoffs.
Now, in saying that, with my Romano pick in the 9th inning, I think that Hicks is the 7th or 8th inning pitcher that comes in before him in a close game.
Yeah.
I still think both of them should get in the game.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I also think Tim Mays has been a huge lefty arm for us. He's been consistent all year. He's pitching a 1.38 ERA this season, which I think is
It's good, really good.
It's not talked about.
It's not talked about enough, exactly.
But no matter what we say about the pitching and how good it is, it's going to come down if the Jays can hit the ball in the playoffs. Because you're not going to hold these teams like the Rays, all these teams. You're not going to hold them to 2 runs a game. They're going to score. We have to score.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. So I think that's all we got about the Jays.
Yeah, that's all we got on the Jays today. Shifting from the Jays to the whole MLB, what are we thinking about the wild card races here, boys?
I think both the AL and NL races are very, very tight. The AL got a handful of teams competing for the last wild card spot. You know, you got Toronto, Houston, Seattle, but also Texas. I think they do have a wild card spot locked, but they're battling for where they're going to be in the wild card. So it's all important games for them. Houston and Seattle Texas and Seattle end off the season against each other, battling for the wild card. So they're also huge games, and also the NL is very close with the Chicago Cubs, Miami Marlins, and Arizona Diamondbacks battling for the last 2 spots as well. So what do you guys think the NL is going to shape up first? We'll talk about it.
I think the NL is going to be the Philadelphia's and Miami.
Philadelphia's? Yeah. Philadelphia Phillies is already there, but so who do you think?
They're already in the division. Yeah. They're getting the division.
They already got it. So who do you think is out? Arizona, Miami, or the Cubs? Who do you think is missing out on this?
I think the Cubs are going
to
miss
Cubs.
I do think the
Definitely
Cubs are going to miss out. I think, honestly...
I disagree. I think the Miami Marlins will miss out on the playoffs. I think they are an overrated team. I think everyone thinks they're so good because Luis Arraez and their Jazz Chisholm or whatever his name is, but I think Jazz Chisholm is not as good as people make him out to be, and I really like the Cubs because I really like Cody Bellinger this year. He's very underrated.
Comeback season for him, for sure.
Very good. I like. They're just good all around. Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson, great players all around, and they got good pitching. I mean, they got Justin Steele, which he's probably gonna be close behind Blake Snell for the NL Cy Young Award. So I do think the Cubs get the last spot. I think it goes the Phillies. Then I think it goes the Diamondbacks, and then finally the Cubs, and Miami actually misses out, in my opinion. Now you guys tell me why you think the Cubs will miss.
I don't know. I like the bats of Miami. I think they're an exciting team to watch.
Yeah.
I just I don't know. I don't follow the NL as much as the AL, but I do, like branching out from this wild card race. I don't think these teams are close to the AL really. I think the AL race is a lot more skilled teams and a lot more exciting to watch.
I agree with that. I think the AL. I think the World Series. I think the only two huge contenders for the World Series in the NL is obviously Atlanta and the Dodgers, and then I think the Phillies are also underrated. But I think for sure Milwaukee, Arizona, Miami, Chicago, not a chance. I think everybody in the AL really has a pretty good chance at it. Besides Minnesota, I think Baltimore's a good young. They're inexperienced, but they're proven time and time again this year in the regular season come out in big games. I think Texas has a very good rotation with Corey Seager, Marcus Simeon. You can't go wrong with that. Tampa Bay has been Tampa Bay all year. They've been great. Toronto, you never know what they can do. They're inconsistent, but if they get on a run in the playoffs, they can do some damage. And of course, Houston, the World Series winners last year, they know what it takes.
Yeah, I agree in terms of I think that any of these AL teams, if they get in the playoffs, they can do some damage. Whereas I think the NL is more, there's top dogs and then there's a lot lower ranked teams getting in the playoffs. But I'm excited to watch the AL playoffs. I think they're going to be exciting. I think Baltimore they just flat out score runs. They're fast. They score runs. Texas plays a similar style. They score a lot of runs, but Texas has a lot of good pitching too.
Yeah, I like Texas for the playoffs. So I think they're built for the playoffs. They got people there. Max Scherzer did get hurt. They don't know if he'll be back yet, but if they get him back, they're a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, and I just think Tampa Bay kind of always flies under the radar. No one really talks about how they're almost at 100 wins here now. They're a team that the Jays were supposed to get matched up against for a while.
Yeah.
They're just a good baseball team. They play good at home, and as you were saying about Houston, Houston's been there before. You can't count them out no matter who they're playing.
Well, I mean, Tampa's had a lot of injuries all season long. With McClanahan, their ace pitcher out. A lot of their just great pitching prospects gone. A lot of their pitching. But time and time again, just another person steps up for them in their rotation. Just been great all year.
Well, that's a sign of a good team, right? Like your best players come out for a little while, you're missing people, and you continue to win games.
Yep. Any of your guys' opinions on this, or
No.
Toronto is playing Tampa Bay in their next series, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
So that could be big games to maybe even secure their spot over Houston. Because Seattle, they're going to be fighting for that last spot.
But you know what? The thing is, it's kind of two different perspectives from these two teams because Tampa Bay doesn't need to win these games.
Yeah.
So are they really going to put their best foot forward?
Are they going to rest their
So that's why Toronto got to try.
That's why Toronto got to capitalize on this opportunity.
For then they can get ahead of Seattle and Houston by even more than they are now.
So you've got Toronto who desperately needs to win these games, and you got Tampa Bay who really don't care.
Yeah.
Besides for obviously pride and momentum going into the playoffs. But another thing I'd like to just quickly talk about is Cincinnati's not technically out of the race yet either. I don't think they're a good ball team for the playoffs, but I mean, L.A. De La Cruz.
Unbelievable.
I think the Reds are a fun team to watch on TV. They're fast, they're young, they just play the game fast.
Yeah, they got a high tempo, but I mean, I don't really believe in them. Well, if you can see, their run differential is actually bad. They got a negative 45 run differential, which I don't like their pitching either. I don't think they have one specific ace or anything like that. I don't believe in them to make the playoffs. And if they do, I don't think they got a chance of even winning the wild card.
No, and I mean, you got to think about it. Even last season, they were one of the worst teams in baseball. And they turned it around pretty quickly. They had a good season. I think they do have a bright future, but I don't think they have much future in this season.
I just want to quickly say, what about the San Diego Padres? Absolutely abysmal year for them. Abysmal.
I don't really understand it. I think it has to be some kind of ego thing in the locker room because they have the talent to be there.
They have some of the best players in the game. They have Juan Soto. They got Tatis, Bogarts, Manny Machado. They
got tons of talent.
The Cy Young. They have the Cy Young favorite for the NL, Blake Snell. He's unreal. I don't understand how they're not winning. Do you have any thoughts on how they're not winning, or
No, I don't have any thoughts. I think there's tons of talents. They should be getting the wins there.
I don't. There's something about when you watch them. They don't play like a team as much as some of the other teams do.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's something going on in that room because there's no reason why they can't be a good team. They have pitching, they have hitting.
Yep. Talking about great players, let's get into the NL MVP race because that's been gaining a lot of looks lately. And I just want to say, I personally think that Acuna got it, and I think a lot of people do. But there is a case for Mookie Betts. I think Acuna obviously had a historic year this year. 40 home runs, 70 stolen bases.
Yeah.
Unreal. I think he's a great hitter, hitting for contact and power, and fast. But I personally think that Mookie Betts' defense is also way better than Acuna's. He's a versatile player. Plays right field, second base. He plays shortstop time to time. I think he's very versatile and a great defender.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I just feel like in terms of offense, Acuna edges Mookie out in so many different categories by little bits, and you also got to look at Acuna's taken 163 at bats this season, and Mookie Betts only had 570. Acuna's played more games. Acuna also only has an 11% strikeout rate to Mookie's 15.
Yeah.
So I do think that it's close, but I do think that, especially seeing the fact that the Braves are first in their division.
Yeah, that's also huge. The Braves are over the Dodgers.
You got to remember that a lot of this MVP has to do with are you contributing to a good team. I think that Acuna is going to have this wrapped
and just
up.
like the Braves are just having a historic year this year. I mean, they're competing to have the most home runs in the league of history. They have 304, I believe, and they need 4 more in the next 3 games to be the most home runs hit by a team in league history.
And I mean, I think they'll do it. They're an exciting team to watch. They hit the ball. I mean, they're just a great team, and I think Acuna is leading them in a lot of ways.
And finally, I just want to say, how funny was that Bryce Harper moment the other day?
Angel Hernandez, he's crazy, man. Like he was nowhere near check swinging that. He had that just back before.
Time and time again, he just makes terrible calls.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many reasons why he shouldn't be an umpire, but he's been there so long, he's gonna stay. That's just it's a good souvenir for the fan, I guess. I mean, if I was Bryce, I'd be
The
mad.
helmet in fans.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's all we have for the MLB. So we will be moving on.
Now shifting to NHL, who do you guys got for your favorites this year for the Stanley Cup?
I think Carolina. I think they got a great team. They're all around. They got good offense, defense. Their goalies, they're not amazing, but they can stop the puck pretty good. One of the fan favorites across the world is Toronto. I do not think Toronto should be a fan favorite. They got the superstars, but they do not have no experience.
Yeah. I also am going to go with Carolina. I think that they've just come up short the last couple of years. I think they're one of, if not the deepest team in the NHL. I think it's just going to come down to whether they can score goals because they have great decor. They have good enough goaltending to get them through. I'm going with Carolina.
And who do you think?
My disappointment team, I think, is going to be Tampa Bay Lightning. I think they're going to get off to a slow start, especially with Vasilevsky gone. But I also think that with the Stamkos animosity going on between them and the owners, I just think that they're a team that's on the way out, not on the way in.
Good point. The team I believe in, a lot of you might not agree with me, but I heavily agree with the Dallas Stars. I think they're a great team to win the Cup. By betting odds, they are actually the 10th team with the best odds, which I think is ridiculous. I think it should be top 5 or 6. I think they picked up great players such as Duchesne, players that were great third line, second line, forward depth, and
good deals too.
Yeah, and I would also like to add that I really believe in Jake Ottinger this year. Yeah. I think the first 2 years he's been playing great. I think it's going to be a new level this year. After 2 years of experience in the NHL, I think he will be great. And a team I don't really believe in is actually the Boston Bruins. They lost Bergeron, they lost Krejci. I just don't think they'll be the same. Lost Bertuzzi as well, that's true. They just lost some key assets for their run last year. And I also don't think that Allmark or Swayman will have the same years they had last year. So I just think they will, overall, the whole team will decrease.
Well, you also got to remember, Allmark is not really a proven goalie. He had one good season, but other than that, he hasn't had a season close to what he did last year. Obviously, the Boston Bruins are going to drop in points. That is historic season last year. But at the same time, I still think they are a playoff team. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. I'm not saying that they're not.
No.
I just don't think they have a chance.
but I do agree, not a great chance to cup.
Well, in my opinion, I think my cup favorites for this year, I think it's going to be a surprise here, but I'm saying Edmonton. Now, I'm looking at their team, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, two best players in the league by far. And then you got Stuart Skinner in goal. I think he's going to take a big step up this year, in my opinion. You got Evan Bouchard, who already took that step last year into the first D position, best D on the team. Him and Darnell Nurse.
I'm looking to see Jack Campbell have a bounce back season.
Sounds like you're glazing a little bit of Evan Bouchard. I don't think it's going to be as good.
I think Evan Bouchard's got a better year than he did last year.
Okay,
that's
hold on,
my
hold on.
opinion. I'm just saying.
Listen. Who do you think is a better player? Evan Bouchard or someone like Morgan Riley?
I think going into this year, if we're talking about who's going to be the better player this year, Evan Bouchard.
No.
I think
No.
he's young. He's not old like Morgan Riley.
I think you're glazing him a little bit.
And
You
okay.
I
don't
also
have the
think-
offense
see
like
when the
Warner
year
I
Brothers.
also think that I don't think Stuart Skinner's going to have the jump that you
I think Stuart
predict.
Skinner's jumping up.
Um.
Came out of nowhere last year, played pretty good for that Oilers.
Okay, so like I just want to see where do you put Bouchard? Like, what is another D that you can compare him to that is kind of on the same level? You said he's over Riley, so I want to see where you have him.
I would compare Bouchard to maybe like a Dougie Hamilton. Bit smaller.
I don't know.
No,
I did
But the same type of play.
Now, speaking of Evan Bouchard, though, I did hear the other day that they do plan on starting him on the top pair with Darnell Nurse.
Exactly.
But I don't think he's a good enough defender to put him this high.
I don't know.
So
I
if
think
you're
he's
an
underrated.
NFL, sorry, if you're an NHL GM, you get sent Dougie Hamilton, and you're giving away Bouchard.
I'm keeping Bouchard.
No.
Younger, and still got a lot to prove.
That's an atrocious take. in my
Yeah.
opinion. That is
Do
beyond
not
me.
agree.
We'll see
Beyond me.
when it gets to the
Don't
season.
Okay.
I do think, though, back to your Edmonton Oilers, that they are a dangerous team.
Yeah.
They're a very dangerous team.
And the team that you don't believe in.
I'm gonna say the New Jersey Devils. I just think they're way too young.
So you're just slandering
I agree.
Dougie Hamilton.
Now,
Wow.
my question is, Murph. My question is, they beat the Rangers last season in the playoffs. They're only going to get better. So why do you think they're going to decline
I
this
think
season?
if they got to play the Rangers again this year, the Rangers win.
Why?
7-game series, the Rangers win.
Why?
Why?
Well, because
You gotta have facts behind them.
you got Mika, you got.
They had them last year. They had them last year. They
Murph.
lost.
Okay, I'm just saying.
All I'm
no
saying
way.
is,
I think it was a fluke that the Devils won last year.
yeah,
Now, 7-game series. We're in game 7.
And I don't think they should have won it.
but why? My question is, why are they going to get worse? This year?
I think Sturkin was a big part of the Rangers last year in that playoff game, and I think this year, if that game were to re-happen, he would not do what he did last year.
I honestly think I was almost going to go with New Jersey as my pick to win. Almost. I think the Devils are only getting better.
I'm gonna get better, but not this year.
With
Not
that,
this year.
I just want to say, Tampa Bay, cup favorite. Big loss the other couple days. A couple days ago, they had to take a big loss with Vasilevsky. It was the first at least 2 months of the season with back surgery.
I think Tampa.
How much do you think that affects them?
Well, I almost kind of touched on it by accident when I was talking earlier, but I do think it affects them. But at the same time, even with a slow start, a team like Tampa Bay, I think they will definitely still get into the playoffs. But like I said, ever since they won the Cup, they just continue to lose players because of the salary cap. I don't think they're the same team. Every single year, I think they get a little bit worse. I think the Maple Leafs beating them in the playoffs last year is the tide turner for their Cup runs.
I think I think they're definitely still there.
I think
But
Tampa gets in. They go past.
They'll get in.
They
but
got no one to
I
back
don't
up
think they go past
Vasi.
the
They,
first
they
round.
got to change up their play style because
Well-
they could depend on Vasi.
I'm looking at it here, and their backup goalie is actually a 22-year-old Jonas Johansson.
No experience.
No experience, and he's just getting thrown into a role for a team that expects to contend.
A big role too because like no one is better than Vasi in the NHL right now.
I think that first month and a half for the Lightning is going to be.
I think the fans are going to get a little scared. Of the
Yeah,
Tampa
they
Bay.
can't
But
depend on him as much.
I
At
think
the
they
same
pull it back
time-
when Vasilevsky
At the
comes
same
back.
time, this is only new news as of yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
I do think that Tampa will go out and get a more experienced goalie to play alongside this young guy. I don't see a way that they don't get another goalie.
Finally, let's just talk about Bedard. Big game last night, first preseason game.
Bedard, 2 assists in his NHL debut, basically. He had the game-winning assist. It was a beautiful
Overtime.
pass. Yeah, in overtime.
It just looks like he has so much hockey knowledge when he's out there on the ice. It looks like the game is in slow motion for
I'm
him.
thinking he's putting up, I'd say, at least 60 to 70 points this year.
He's on a rough team, but I really do think that he can just capitalize on a lot of chances.
And good line mates, he got Andreas Anthony and Taylor Hall. I mean,
Well, and I know this was the rookie tournament, but he also put up a hat trick in his first rookie tournament game with the other young players in the league. It's hard to tell. It really is hard to tell if he's going to overachieve or underachieve this season. But I think he definitely has potential for a 70-point season if Taylor Hall is playing.
he's proved
Okay.
he's proved why he's the first-round draft pick, or first pick overall in the draft.
Well, a lot of people doubt him on his height, but I just think
Strong kid.
he's a strong, hard.
I mean, if you look at his quads, they're
good
better
on.
than my
He's
head.
strong on ice, good on his skates, unreal shot. Like you can't get much of a better shot than what he is.
I don't agree with how people are comparing him to McDavid. Gonna be like
Yeah.
McDavid.
It's too much of a.
He's a different.
soon.
He's a different type of player than McDavid
Yeah.
in my mind.
But I just think his overall decision making and passing and just knowledge of the game is just unreal.
And I do think that if he has a slower start than expected, I don't think people should be freaking out like they
He'll
will.
be a franchise.
Because he's on a really bad Blackhawks team this year. They're not much better than they were last season, and they were really bad last year. I think that people got to give him time, even though I do still believe he will have a good season this year.
Well, with that, I think that's all we have for the NHL. So I think we're
Yeah.
good.
All right, and shifting over to NBA, we had a big trade yesterday. Damian Lillard to the Bucks is the big piece in the trade.
Daytime.
Yeah, the Suns. I also want to look at what the Suns gave up. DeAndre Ayton, they give up. Now, looks like they give up a big player, but I got mixed opinions on what they got back. They got a lot of depth in Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson, but they also got a decently good starting center in Yusuf Nurkic.
And that's the replacement they needed to get, and obviously he wasn't worth just a swap Nurkic
Yeah,
for Ayton.
sure.
But it is a serviceable center. I mean, Nurkic is a good center, starting center in the league.
And then the Blazers got Drew Holiday, great defender, DeAndre Ayton, great center, and then a couple players, a couple pick swaps, and a first round pick. So
Yeah, I like that trade from the Trailblazers. I think Dame didn't want to be there. Got to get rid of him. They got 2 first-round picks out of it, and they got 2 pick swaps. Good center. Drew Holiday was, not the worst. Not the
yeah,
best.
but it's just hard to look at. You drafted this guy, and he's played for your organization 8 years, and then he averaged 32 points per game last year,
In my
and
opinion,
now look what they're getting back. Not a great haul, but it isn't bad. You can't complain about it. But I think they could have got a little bit more.
Dame never let them down. They let Dame down.
Now, how do you think the Bucks are gonna do with Damian Lillard?
I think chip.
You think?
I think chip.
I
think there's no way.
I think it definitely makes the Eastern Conference very close.
Giannis and Dame. That's
I mean, it's
mental.
gonna be interesting because Damian was rumored to go to the Miami Heat for the longest
Yep.
time.
And the Raptors.
Uh,
you gotta forget the
Yeah,
Raptors.
but I mean, talking about contenders, the Miami Heat definitely missed out on this one. I just can't see how they couldn't have offered just as good or better of a package.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They obviously did not want to put in what they should have for Damian.
I'd give up on Zinvi.
Well, I think it's kind of time to win now for the Miami Heat. Jimmy's getting a bit old. Damian Lillard is almost a perfect piece for them to have. The same age as all their
Yeah. winning now timeline.
It's just win now, and I think you give up the assets for them there.
I mean, I do like Jaden said, I do like the move for Portland in terms of the young piece in DeAndre Ayton and the picks. I doubt Drew Holiday's going to spend much time in Portland. He'll probably be swapped out for someone younger in a trade. But yeah, Portland's definitely just moving on. They're going to be a young team for a while now.
Yeah, definitely going through a rebuild. But with that trade, who do you got for your NBA champions this year for 2024? We'll start with you, Luke.
I'm going with the Mavs. They got Luka. He's unstoppable.
I like that.
Unstoppable guard. He got some people to help him out, but not really. But my least favorite, I gotta go with the Bucks. I'm not a big fan of Giannis. He's a bit cocky. So I like.
It's not your thoughts on them. It's if they're gonna do good.
They're not gonna. They're gonna do good, but I just don't want them to win.
Yeah. I'm going to take the Denver Nuggets to repeat. I think Jokic is probably one of the most unstoppable players in the world right now. I think Jamal Murray is the perfect Robin to his Batman. I think that I got the Nuggets again.
A team I really like. By betting odds, they are actually got the 10th best odds, which I think is abysmal. But I like the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid. He could go for another MVP candidate. James Harden. They got Tyrese Maxey, great players. I just think that they got what it takes. They've experienced loss already. They've lost in key situations. So I think every team needs to lose a couple times before they win, and I think it's their year. And a team that I actually don't believe in is, and it's hard to bet against them, but I don't like this Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors this year.
Agreed.
I think there's going to be problems between Chris Paul and Steph Curry, both playing same position. And I think if they move one to shooting guard, it's not a great option because they're too small for a shooting guard. Klay Thompson will never be the same, and I just don't think Draymond Green is good as well.
So, I mean, in my opinion, I got the Suns winning the chip. If you look at the roster, I mean, the best scorer ever, some would say, Kevin Durant. They got Bradley Beal, who's very, very solid and good player, and they got Devin Booker, who's been with the team since the start. He deserves to win a chip. I feel like
they also have been there. They played against the Bucks in the championship before.
Exactly, that's what I mean. They deserve one. I think this is their year, but
I
agree. Interesting.
And the team you don't.
I think the Clippers. I can't believe the Clippers. I mean, Kawhi's always out with injury. Paul George isn't enough to get a team to the chip.
I agree with that as well.
I think it's almost time to say that was a fail. The Clippers getting the two superstars.
If I was the
like
Clippers,
that.
I would trade away Kawhi. Even though
Well,
it's
you
hard
can't
to
get much
say.
from him now because he's been out.
I know, but I would try my best because he just don't play.
Stephen A.
he's not
Smith
there.
said it good. He said Kawhi is the worst superstar to have on your team because he barely plays, and it's just he's not a reliable player anymore. And never really was, but he had that one season with the Raptors, which convinced the league and the Clippers enough to give him that big contract, but it's not looking good.
Talking about the Raptors, I don't think they will contend at all this year. I don't believe.
The next few years.
I think Pascal Siakam, he's a good player now, but I don't think he can lead a team.
Yeah, I don't think he's a good enough
I think-
superstar to be the face of the team.
I think a play-in spot or 8 or 7 seat is realistic for the Raptors. I just don't see them making a huge jump from last year, especially the East is getting harder with that trade with Damian Lillard. I just think the Eastern Conference is just a different beast right now, and I just don't believe in them.
I'm really glad they didn't trade for Damian Lillard because that just would not have made sense for their timeline.
Either.
I was confused on why they were even trying to do it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, that's episode 1 of the Spittin' Sports podcast. It's a good episode, lots covered.